Hey, what's up everybody? So today I wanted to share with you guys two tanks that been up for over 5 years. So we can kind of go over some of the things I think that made these tanks successful and got them to this point, as well as going over some basic maintenance to keep these tanks thriving, because even though they've been up for a while and they're mature, they still need some regular maintenance. Now these are two very different types of tank, which you'll see in a second. One is more of the old school model and one is kind of going more towards new school style. So let's go ahead and go inside and take a look at the first tank. So here we are at our first tank and I'm really digging this one. So you can see you got a beautiful colony right here of Kenya tree, which, you know, a lot of times Kenya tree can be I'm a little bit on the wall on it, but here it just looks great. It's nice and like bushy. It just looks really cool right here. A lot of times people, you know, Kenya tree doesn't get the respect I think it deserves sometimes, but it's a great filter coral, helps keep your tank clean. So I don't know, it just works really well here. Then we have some green star polyp or GSP, another coral that gets a kind of a bad rep. The reason why is it does spread quickly, and if you don't manage it, it can kind of take over. But when you got two corals that can spread quickly, they kind of cancel each other out in a lot of ways. But you can see the star polyp up there too, kind of growing on that rock, and soon probably looking like it's gonna grow on that overflow. But you know, it's easy enough to manage. A lot of this stuff just peels off. It's not that big of a deal. Beautiful toadstool leather coral right there. I think it's good size. We have some green mushrooms down here. Some pallies. More green mushrooms, Kenya tree, some hairy mushrooms, I believe. It looks like it. What is that? Yeah. Is that star polyp? No, it's star polyp. We got some star polyp there. Another toadstool leather. Got a little bit, you can tell the difference in the polyps. It's a much brighter green on there, on the polyps. And then over here, you have more of that natural look to the toadstool. We got a clam. Huge fan of clams, love them. That's beautiful, and it seems to be doing really well in this tank as well. You got another toadstool, more green star polyp and some Kenya tree and stuff like that. And as far as fish, we got a Disjardini tang. We have some blue chromis, some PJ cardinals, clownfish, clown wrasse, yellow chorus wrasse, little dragonette, ruby red dragonette, yellow tang, which we all know those are impossible to find now, hard to get. But I really like this tank for the reason that it's simple, but it's just very natural looking. It's not trying too hard, it's just a really nice tank. I love the way it's aquascaped, it kind of opens up here. All the corals are really grown in. I'm just really digging this tank a lot. Another gorgonian down there. These corals all do well. It's not over, I know there's not a lot of different corals in here, but all these corals seem to do really well together with the same tank parameters and the same tank conditions, which lends itself to, you know, just that more of a natural look. And then underneath here in the sump area, which I don't know why this isn't being done more often, but you know, we use refugium to kind of clean the tank and to use it as a, you know, a filtration system. But you know, there's water in here. You got some macroalgae. You can see he's got some really pretty blue mushrooms, some other mushrooms, Kenya tree down there. But using your display, or using your refugium and making it so where it's a display tank also, I think this is an underutilized aspect of the hobby. But you can see he's got some really pretty red algae in there. So different macroalgae and stuff. Now, this is actually kind of pleasant to look at. I mean, you got filter socks right here, but the idea is there. If you can kind of make your refugium more of a display tank, you got fish in there. It's a good place to put newly acquired fish to let them acclimate alone, so they're not, you know, being stressed out by other fish. It's also a good fish timeout. One thing I think that should be focused on more is this kind of using that refugium as almost like a second tank and making it a display in itself, more of a natural macroalgae style tank, and you could put some fish in there and stuff like that. I don't know, it's something I've been kind of wanting to see a lot more of. And then we got this gigantic, huge skimmer. This thing's an actual boss. This thing is massive. I think that's a reef octopus or something like that. I don't know what. That thing is huge. So it's heavy duty skimmer on there. And then just a return section over there. Pretty simple. This tank's been up for a long time. It's well established. It doesn't need crazy filtration. I'm about to do a 20% water change on this and some gravel vac to kind of stir up some of that sand, get some of the organics out of the tank. But this tank has been going on for a long time. There's no need to get too crazy with it. It's well balanced. The corals keep it that way. A lot of your filtrations, the corals provide a lot of that filtration as well. It's not heavily stocked with fish, so it's pretty much dialed in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a gravel vac on this tank because it hasn't had it in a long time, and you know, particulates and organics really build up in the substrate. So I wanted to show you this. Check this out. When I put that gravel vac in there, you can just see all the nastiness that's in that build up over time. It just look at all that. So we want to make sure that that doesn't stay in the tank. We want to get that out, especially with an older tank like this. So you can kind of see all that nastiness getting up in there. So we'll go ahead and take all that out of the tank the best we can. Because it's pretty nasty, it's pretty gross. Get out of there. And let's just take a look at the lights. Now, keep in mind, this tank's been up for a long time. The Viper Spectra's up there, and just a T5 grow light. So it's very rudimentary lighting, nothing too crazy, but it's worked wonders. This tank is absolutely beautiful. I really like it a lot. And they also have a second tank over here, a little nano style tank. What's really cool about this tank is that that's just your little cheap little, well, not cheap, that's your little Amazon light that you get. You can find this on Amazon, and they work pretty well. They're like 40, 50 bucks, but they work really well for a nano style tank. And we can see in here you got your, your trachea, you got rock flower anemones. A really nice colony of those right there. Some more gorgonians, rock flower anemone, even got a clam right here. Some green star polyp, an acan, a mushroom hiding back there. Also a leather coral right here. These polyps are out, you can see, it's pretty cool. You know, for everyone who thinks you need all this like crazy filtration on saltwater tanks, this is just a simple hang on the back filter. That's it. That's all that's on this tank. And the results, here are the results. This is a thriving little nano tank. So a lot of times you don't need all that fancy stuff to have a really nice tank. We also have a bubble coral down there. And then as far as fish go, you have these clownfish. And there is a firefish hiding back there too. So you got paraclowns and then the firefish. And I don't know if there's anything else in here. If there is, then it's hiding really well. Yep, so those are the two tanks there. So here we are at tank number 2, a tank that's been up for about over 6 years. I think it's going on 8 years. We've been servicing this tank for a little over a year now, and it's had its ups and downs, a couple things we've been fighting, which I'll go over later. But right now, let's go inside and let's take a look at it. So here we are at the tank. And you can see there's a bunch of coral in here. A lot of it is new coral. So all these torch corals are new. A lot of these are frags that are new. More on the frag look, but the older corals that were originally with this tank, the monopora right there, you can see it encrusting on the overflow. And then the mother colony of that, which is right here, which we have to frag that up every so often. Another original coral right there. But I think those are the only 2 major corals that are original in this tank. The rest he's just bought within the past year or so. So mainly frags. Oh, here's another original colony, I believe. Some pallies right there. You can definitely tell it's an old school coral. So let's go ahead and go over some of the corals that are in this tank that he got new. So we got your torch coral. He's got a bunch of those. He's a big fan of those torch corals. That's golden torch. And those torch, all these torch corals have been doing pretty well. Then we have some acans. You see all the different acan frags here. All these. Now this one's been in here for a bit. It's been doing really, really well. So all the different acans he has. Some beautiful mushrooms. And he loves his hammer corals. He loves Euphyllia corals, so got a bunch of hammers too. Right there. Acans blastos. Also check this. Check that torch coral out. The camera really can't pick up just how unbelievable that is. So some of the issues that we've dealt with in the past with this tank when we first started servicing it, it had a huge infestation of Mahano anemones, and you can see right back there, there's still a Mahano growing, but it's much better than it was, which I'll go ahead and hit that with some F-Aptasia. And speaking of Aptasia, the other problem was Aptasia. And you can still see it's really hard to get rid of Aptasia, but there's one right there. So I'll go ahead and keep hitting that. If you notice, there's no zoas in this tank either. And he just got a frag of zoas recently. But that's because there was zoa eating nudibranchs in this tank. So he used to have colonies all right where those torches are. You see all right where those torches are? That used to all be zoanthids right there. And the nudibranch was just destroying them. So we had to take them out. We have them at our shop and we're dipping them. But that whole thing was zoas. So hopefully now we got rid of all the nudibranchs and those do well. The new zoas. Mahanos, Aptasia, eating nudibranchs. We also had flatworm, LPS eating flatworm as well. So if you look at this scully right here, that's kind of one of the corals that was getting hit by those LPS eating flatworms. Unfortunately, he's kind of a remnant of the past there. And you can see a skeleton right there, but he used to have a lot more scullies and they were just ravaged by those flatworms. We feel like we've solved it. We've gotten rid of them. We took all those corals out. We've dipped them. This is the only one that semi-survived. I don't think it's gonna make it, but there are no more flatworms in this tank, so that's a good thing. And we just move forward from here. But that's a good reason, you know, be careful where you buy your corals from. You wanna make sure you're getting them from a good quality place. You spend a lot of money on corals and, you know, you could lose them to some, you know, something like a flatworm eating pest. I love this chalice. This is a beautiful chalice coral right there. I love that guy. You can see he's encrusting outward. It's beautiful. So let's take a look at his filtration. And very, very simple, as you can see. You got your old school aquarium here. And we've actually ordered this little filter sock holder. So you just got your overflow, drains into here, into this pipe. This big old filter sock, we put floss in there. Goes into here, you got your toasting skimmer section, it's right here. Usually we put a little bit of floss in there to help polish the water, and then you just have your return section. Really, really simple. We have an ATO, and there's his ATO reservoir. So nothing too crazy about this filtration system. Like I said, this tank's been up for a long time. And you know what they say, if it ain't broke and if it's working well, you know, and it's been working for him, so he doesn't feel the need to upgrade the filtration right now. But we were able to add a doser to keep things more steady, the calcium and alkalinity a little bit more steady. And as these corals are growing, they're definitely going to need that calcium and alkalinity dosed in there, and definitely going to need some amino acids eventually, because there's a lot of coral in here. Once they start to grow, the stuff that's in the tank isn't going to be enough to sustain them. But everybody is very happy. You can tell by the corals. The acantins are big, they're fluffy, the polyps are out. Same thing with the Euphyllia coral, they're big, the polyps are out. Trumpet coral. So everything to the eye looks really well. I just tested nitrate and phosphate, and it's perfect. Calcium alkalinity is perfect. In this tank, we keep the calcium at about 440, 445 in that range, and the alkalinity we keep around, I think it's like 8.4 or 8.5 or something like that, above 8. But as coralline algae grows and as these corals grow, that obviously is gonna, we're gonna have to make adjustments to the doser to be able to make sure we keep up with it. Now, as far as fish, unfortunately, when we first got this tank, it had a really bad case of some type of fish ciliate. I don't know what it was. I don't think it was marine velvet, but it was something that killed a lot of his original fish. And he did have a lot of fish like foxface and some of the tangs even that were eating the coral. So he wanted to remove those and get fish that could do a little bit better around coral. So we just recently put these 2 clownfish in there. They're doing really well. You see you got a PJ Cardinal there. You have 6-line wrasse hiding in here somewhere. There is another tang in here. I think it's a mini tang. Not 100% sure, but we definitely are going to add more fish to this tank because of the fish disease loss and because the fish that weren't able to cohabitate with these corals. So if you have any suggestions of what fish to put in here, I'm thinking some type of fairy wrasse would be really, add some color to the tank, which I think it needs. I think it would be really nice. I think fairy wrasse would add a lot of color to this tank and a lot of movement too, because they're active swimmers, so I think that'd be a good choice. But now we definitely feel safe. Like I said, we put these in 2 weeks ago. We feel safe that there's nothing left in the tank that's gonna harm fish. So I think we can start beginning the process of getting fish back in this tank. I'm only going to be doing a 15 to 20% water change on this tank, and going to be really detailed when I do it, because I really want to take out the fish waste and stuff like that and the broken down organics, get them out. But I don't want to mess up, I don't want any fluctuations in the water. I don't want to change the water chemistry too much. So we want to keep it even. So we're going to be really thorough with our water change and get out all that gunk by also not taking out too much water. Stability is key in this hobby, so we try to keep it as stable as possible. So if it doesn't need a big water change, we're not going to give it a big water change. This Chalice coral I put on here on the overflow when it was just this little, it was just like one eye, and then you can see it's all, that whole thing. So, and that's within a matter of, like, I think 4 to 6 months, it's grown to that size. So I'm really happy with that way that's doing, and I love the idea of it growing on to this overflow and it kind of branching out, kind of like how this one is. I think it's gonna look really cool. And with these, with that Monopora and this one, they're gonna encrust. So I kind of have the same idea. I want to put that on the back glass there. So hopefully that'll work. I just don't know if it's gonna get enough light there. If not, maybe behind those torches. We'll see. So our last look at the tank before we leave. We did the water change. Everything looks good. These guys. Hey. We'll probably end up going to once a month on this tank just because it is doing better. We've come a long way. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like we're on an upswing. Plus we have the owner of the tank is very attentive. He watches his corals very close. He cares about this tank a lot, and he's put a lot of work into it. So I think it's gonna do well. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.